On the northwest shores of the Italian peninsula, facing the islands of Corsica and Sardinia, lies the towering, tortuous coastline of Liguria that's given its name to this corner of the Mediterranean Sea. The Ligurian Sea, its deep waters rich in plankton. This is the habitat of the Mediterranean whale, a protected, well-monitored species. The contrast between the water and the land is almost theatrically dramatic. The water is immediately deep here, hosting life that reproduces endlessly in a timeless world. Above the waves, time has scanned the millennia of world history and now beats to the rhythm of progress and modernization with all its achievements and inherent problems. Genoa is the capital of the region, a city that reflects centuries of development. An urban reality projected into the future, while never denying the past, however remote it may be. Caves in Liguria host fossilized remains of the Ursus Pelleus. This bear was hunted by Stone Age man, who's left many signs of his presence in the region. Paleolithic burial sites decorated with shells, a moving gesture of love, date back to over 20,000 years ago. Homo sapiens first appeared in Liguria in the guise of the Neanderthal man. In the dizzying course of thousands of years, the human race evolved, displaying an inspired talent for creativity. These stelae were made by the earliest organized communities that lived here during the Bronze Age and the Iron Age. The people of Liguria have roots that run deep into the past. They're tenacious Italians with a marked bent for industriousness and progress. In Genoa, modernization is in continuous contact with the past. A modern thoroughfare almost brushes an ancient monument. The Palazzo San Giorgio was built in the 13th century, but the lively colors of the facade were added some 400 years later. The continuous clash of styles and historical periods is a feature of many Italian cities, but in Genoa, the mix can be astonishingly provocative. Similar interplays are found in the surrounding countryside. In the physical characteristics of this mountainous land overlooking the sea. A sea as deep as the peaks are high. The western reaches of the Alps rise here in a series of snow-capped crests and valleys that reach for the sky against the distant backdrop of an invitingly blue Mediterranean Sea. In Liguria, winter and summer coexist for months at a time, bathed in the rays of a benevolent sun. Cliffs, small islands, bays and promontories are guarded by a natural wall of soaring highlands. On land, the same protection is extended to benefit human industry that in the course of generations has been expressed in villages, cities and castles. Scrublands have been tamed to create enchanted, multi-hued gardens that vie with the beauty of the seafloor. Floral displays, be they below the waves or on land, never fail to astonish. It's no coincidence that Genoa hosts the Euroflora annual flower show. It's also no coincidence that the show is landscaped against the backdrop of a magnificent villa. The most famous of these Ligurian residences stands on a promontory on the western shores of the region. Here, in the 19th century, a passionate botanist created a garden with thousands and thousands of examples of Mediterranean plant life. At the eastern end of the Riviera, the Gulf of Tigullio is a place of great aggregation. This domain of the seagull is complemented by a formidable array of architecture that adds a veneer of human achievement to the natural panorama. Towns cling to the lie of the land on headlands and bays along the coast. The facade of the church in Cervo catches the winds off the sea like a large sail. Further to the east lies the world-famous town of Portofino. The ancient Romans called this perfect compromise between the land and the sea Portus Delphini. History has been written in this verdant bay, especially at the social level, and it will forever have a place in the hearts of those who defend the environment. Lerici is another of Liguria's ancient ports that long ago ceased to be a bustling naval and freight terminal and is now occupied by a seasonal army of vacationers. The local stronghold survives from the Middle Ages, when even places of worship were heavily fortified. The Abbey of Sant'Andrea in Borsone was no exception. Its strategic location dominates one of the valleys that leads down to the sea. Generation after generation, the people of Liguria have sailed and worked the sea, with the same fervour with which they work the land. But since the 19th century, a time-old balance has been replaced by a new social order. Ansaldo Energia boasts more than 100 years of history and is an important example of heavy industry not only in Genoa but also on a national scale. Turbines produced here generate electricity in 75 countries and bear witness to the excellence of Genoa's native expertise. Another equally important industrial tradition is represented by the Cantieri Navali shipyards. A boom in the first 2 decades of the 20th century was followed by an ongoing series of tribulations, triumphs and modernization schemes that's added page after page to the already richly documented history of the Fincantieri yachts. an international success story built on years and years of experience. Genoa's industrial scenario is being constantly revised by the drive of intense forward planning. ELSAG is a leader in Italian information technology. With human resources topping the 55,000 mark and customers in over 100 countries, Marconi is a global trendsetter in high-speed communication systems. The agricultural sector also keeps abreast of the times. On the dizzying slopes of the picturesque Cinque Terre, the Five Lands, specially designed machinery is used to cultivate terraces suspended between the sea and the sky. Today there's no stigma attached to the once backbreaking work on plots wrested from an impervious environment in the course of generations. Kilometre after kilometre of arable land contained within millions and millions of square meters of walls was worked by hand until quite recently. The challenge of building the walls themselves was met and overcome by men and women of all ages, painstakingly, stone by stone. Olive oil and wine have been produced here since the Romans occupied the area in the 3rd century BC. The remains of the ancient Roman amphitheatre in Luni lie in one of the area's rare flat zones. Additional evidence of the Roman presence is found in this bronze plaque that reports a sentence by Roman magistrates and contains the first recorded mention of the name Genoa. Genoa was known as La Superba, the Sublime City, in the days when its merchant and military fleets dominated the Mediterranean Sea. From the Middle Ages onwards, century after century of growing importance prompted urban development, reflected in lay and religious architectural achievements. Among many palatial masterpieces, the 13th century Palazzo della Commenda, which was built to house pilgrims who embarked here on their way to the Holy Land, lies in the shadow of the church of St. John of Pre. Piazza Banchi was a source of inspiration for a Flemish master. The church of St. Augustine is nearby. The main office of St. George's, one of Europe's oldest banks, stands on the street that leads from the city centre to the port, a monument to Genoa's days of economic supremacy. The city's burgeoning wealth demanded adequate defences from pirate raids and invasions from the north, and a series of strongholds was constructed to provide constant vigilance over the city. The remains of a magnificence that over the years inspired many painters, including this 16th century master. In the old port, the perfect replica of a centuries-old galleon is a reminder of an era when Genoa ruled the waves. The popular tourist attraction rides at anchor in waters that used to host fleets that were the envy of the world. This painting from the 17th century offers a glimpse of wharfside life in those heady days. The People's Tower, also called La Grinaldina, saw the construction at the end of the 13th century of the Ducal Palace that was to become the seat of the Republic's power and the residence of the Doges. Destroyed by fire in 1770, the palace was rebuilt and the greater council hall was decorated in the neoclassical style. A supreme tribute to the power of the seafaring Republic of Genoa, Queen of the Mediterranean. The Palazzo Doria Pamphili is known as the House of the Prince. Holy Roman Emperor Charles V stayed here before it became the home of the great 16th century condottiere Andrea Doria, whose victories at sea earned him the title of Prince and made him the Lord of the city. The great Renaissance hero commissioned famous artists to decorate the walls. The greater hall is dominated by a portrait of the prince himself that seems to belie his great wisdom and authority. Andrea Doria not only commanded warships, he also built them, and his galleons played a decisive role in the Battle of Lepanto, the first step in the decline of the Ottoman Empire. Visitors to Genoa's Maritime Museum learn that this is only one of the achievements that consolidated the supremacy of the seafaring Republic of Genoa. Among the exhibits is a valuable collection of models that evoke the ships used by Genoa to defend and expand its military and commercial interests. In 1538, a great naval review was held to lionize the city's power and wealth. Genoa's horizons extended far beyond the Mediterranean, and the city was destined to play a key role in the discovery of the New World, attributed to the great mariner who is perhaps its most famous son, Christopher Columbus. To celebrate the 500th anniversary of his birth, the tall ships, the world's most magnificent sailing ships, dropped anchor in the port, evoking a moment in time 5 centuries ago that's ever present for all those who ply the seas. Whoever leaves or arrives in Genoa by sea is greeted by the lanterna, the symbol of the city, that marked the entrance to the port for hundreds of years. A wide range of craft, from humble sailing boats to racing yachts and passenger ships, uses the city's marine services. In spite of changing designs and ever bigger cruise ships, traffic in the port prompts the discerning visitor to think back to a day in 1932 when the Rex, one of the world's largest passenger liners, put out from here on course to New York, completing the crossing in record time to win the coveted Blue Riband. The container port to the west of Genoa is one of the Mediterranean's largest maritime trade terminals. The complex industrial hubs of Liguria and its coastline never fail to impress, and remain in sharp contrast to small, jealously preserved landings that serve clusters of period dwellings. Boccadasse is but one example. Pageants and fiercely disputed ancient contests are a frequent feature. Today, Liguria's historic towns and cities, steeped in tradition, face the greatest challenge in their age-old history. The need to modernize urban development, designed for less demanding requirements, renovating not only monuments, but also unassuming buildings, while maintaining the original character. A constant process of reconstruction is underway to preserve the soul of the city. Every large metropolitan area is beset by traffic flow problems, and Genoa is no exception. In fact, here, the dilemma is aggravated by the local geography. The ancient Romans were the first to create access by land by driving the Via Aurelia through the mountains. Almost 2,000 years later, civil engineers emulated that achievement by connecting Genoa and Rome by rail. Today, technology overcomes natural barriers with comparative ease to create fast, safe intercity connections. Despite modern development, oases of luxuriant vegetation still guard an important aspect of Genoa's heritage, its splendid selection of historical villas. Many of these magnificent houses have been immortalized in landscapes by Alessandro Magnasco, a master in the art of portraying the aristocracy languishing in the grandeur of their homes and gardens. In the 19th century, such gardens and public parks might have echoed to the music of another of Genoa's famous sons, Niccolò Paganini. This Guarnieri violin, made in 1742, came into the great maestro's possession 100 years later. Now, at the onset of the third millennium, it's being used to delight us with a masterful rendition of a capriccio. Paganini's sometimes libertine behavior made him a controversial figure in Genoa's 19th century high society. This restricted, refined world has always followed the city's problems with great attention, taking a special interest in the condition of the less privileged classes. Donations from the wealthy allowed municipal authorities to fund a welfare plan in a period when poverty was universally regarded as a far-reaching social ailment for which there was no remedy. The result was the monumental Shelter for the Poor. The opposite side of the coin, and no less monumental, is represented by the splendid residence in which the members of the House of Savoy used to stay when visiting Genoa. The Gallery of Mirrors is quite exceptional. A fine example of religious architecture is the San Lorenzo Cathedral. Construction began before the year 1000, but as was the case for so many cathedrals, building continued for several centuries, with Romanesque and Gothic additions admirably incorporated into the original structure. Drawing on the fascination of yesteryear and the drive of modern Genoa, famed architect Renzo Piano has redesigned the port area, creating symbols that honor the city and its timeless, ongoing rapport with the sea. Symbolism is rife here, with cotton warehouses and cranes of the past standing proudly in the shadow of modern high-rises. Extensive port facilities have been developed around the original harbour. Piano's observation platform offers a close-up view of his sails and the marine pavilion that houses Europe's largest aquarium. A privileged view of the sea and its creatures for visitors and residents alike. Genoa, Liguria, Italy. A reality with far-reaching horizons that reflects the past of a city and a region bathed in the light of the third millennium.